Okay, we are ready. So whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair, we can start the meeting.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Welcome to the Main Gate District Design Review Committee meeting on Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. It is now 2:04 p.m. I would like to do a roll call for the people listed on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and if I may, before I do the roll call, I just would like to let everybody know that we have new members of the Main Gate District Design Review Committee due to a couple of retirements that took place from the University of Arizona and also from the Marshall Foundation. I don't know if it's a good idea for each member, FDRC member, as I call your name, to just introduce yourself very briefly, so everybody gets to know each other. So I'm gonna start. Mr. Birkenbein, he recused himself. Dr. Kurans.
Present. Hi.
Hi, can you just introduce yourself very, very briefly, just to
Sure.
let everybody know who you are?
Sure. I'm an associate professor of urban planning at the University of Arizona. I'm one of the University of Arizona representatives. My work, my scholarship mainly pertains to the relationship between travel behavior, transportation, and land development and activities.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Gonzalez, our design professional.
Yes.
Chair.
Rick Gonzalez. I'm a registered architect and design professional for City of Tucson. I've been doing this, I think now for about 10 years with two other design professionals. But I'm typically the one that's involved with the MGD DRC.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Guro?
Yes, good afternoon. I am Ryan. I am the Vice President for Facilities, Operations, and Campus Planning here at the University of Arizona and new to the committee.
Thank you very much and welcome. Ms. Ryland?
Hi there, my name is Alexis Ryland. I am a commercial property manager with Cushman & Wakefield Picor. We were brought on in March of this year to do the third-party property management for the Marshall Foundation. So this is my first committee meeting. I do believe Kelly Huber, who is also on this call, she's come on as the new executive director for the Marshall Foundation, will likely be taking the chair for the Marshall Foundation's role going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Ryland. And yeah, that's correct. So, Ms. Huber, when the city manager gets to send confirmation that you are the new appointed representative for the Marshall Foundation to sit down in this board, I will definitely let you know. But she's here, Ms. Huber, so thank you for joining, but she's just gonna be observing, and it's up to the DRC to welcome her opinions if she would like to share any, but they would be just as a member of the general public at this point. Mr. Sensibar?
Hi, Noah Sensibar, resident of West University, general contractor, served on the West University Historic Preservation Zone Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Sensibar. Mr. Warren?
Tom Warren. I've been the developer and consultant with the Marshall Foundation for the retail and for the Marshall building and university buildings right at the main gate. And relative to this committee, I was the point person for the city to do the zoning for the high-rise dorms, and have been on the committee since its inception. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. And Mr. Williams? Mr. Williams, are you here? Did we lose him? Oh, he was here. I don't see him. We might have lost him for a moment. So hopefully he will be able to rejoin. So, Mr. Chair, we do have quorum.
Okay, thank you. We have quorum with at least 2 members and myself. We have even more than that. So second item is the 1/13/21 draft legal action report. Do I have a motion for approval?
And this has been a while, but just to remind for those who were part of the DRC back then, this was for the review of the Hub 5.
I move for approval.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor of approving the draft legal action report?
Aye.
Dr. Kearns,
Abstain.
Mr. Guerra, Ms. Rowland,
Aye.
Mr. Sensibar,
Abstain.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
and I
Oh,
think
excuse me. I was recused, I think, from this, Mr. Chair.
okay, so what do we have, Maria? Do we
I
have
think we have 3.
enough to approve the legal action report?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if we don't have anybody objecting, that is correct.
Are there any other objections?
And Mr. Chair, members of the DRC, just to let you know, this was an issue that came up with the Design Review Board, the DRB. There were questions some time ago about being able to vote or not for a legal action report if you were not present. And the boards and commissions from the clerk's office let us know that yes, you still can, because you still can have access to the recordings of the meeting, so you can always choose to vote even if you did not attend the meeting, just for
Very good.
future reference.
Very good, thank you. So we have approval of the action item. I'll move to item 3, the call to the audience. Anyone that wishes to speak may speak up to 3 minutes. Okay, it sounds like we don't have anyone. I'll move to item 4, SD 0624-00061, capstone student and workforce housing related activity TD DEV 0324-00107, 112 East Speedway.
It's Mr. Chair, it's 812.
I'm sorry, 812 East Speedway Boulevard, and it's on 7 different parcels. It's in the H1 zoning and the Main Gate district, and the greater infill incentive.
Oh, that's a mistake, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's not in the GIS. It's just in the main gate district.
Okay, HR1 zoning and the main gate urban overlay district. This is a courtesy review. The feedback from the MGD DRC is purely informational and no action will be taken. I, at this point, would like the applicant to introduce themselves and proceed with their package presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Noel Grimsman, I'm the Senior Urban Planner here at Snell and Wilmer. We're at 1 East Washington, 27th floor in downtown Phoenix for your record. Got members of the development team with me here as well. I'm just looking around. I'm going to start. I'll have start Mr. Bain. Brad, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, I'm Brad Bain, principal for Anchor Moisen Architects. We're the designers for the project.
And then since we're going to stick on the architecture theme, Jason, I'll go to you next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Johns. I'm the higher education studio leader for Anchor Moisen.
And Matt.
I'm Matt Jansen with Anchor Moisen. I'm a design principal here.
And then sticking on the design side, we'll go to landscape. Amy.
Hello, I'm Amy Perone. I'm a landscape architect and senior associate at Norris Design. We're the landscape architects on the project.
And then not all the pretty stuff, but the important stuff, engineering, Tree.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tree Miller with Frick Engineering. We are the civil engineer for the project.
I don't think we have anybody else on from our team. Am I missing anybody? Looks like we're good. Okay. So let me see if I can get this to be cooperative. We're all rolling the dice here. I think this should be working. So let's see. It should be a big picture of a building and some case numbers up there if it's working right. All right. So again, thank you. As the chairman noted, this is the Capstone Apartment project. We're at the southeast corner of Speedway and Euclid. And the project again, 812 East Speedway will be the address, but is an assemblage of a number of parcels. And kind of wanted to start off briefly by, this thing's going to be, there we go, a little trip back in time. We started engaged with Capstone back in 2018 to start this project. And originally, the 6 parcels that are kind of on the north were part of the project. And then the project went on long enough that the other 2 south parcels became available. So that ended up with the original 6 with the 2 more taking us to 8 parcels. Quite a bit of an assemblage. And where we started out with was, a parcel that's in a unique location. Obviously, to our immediate east is the high-rise, mid-rise student housing projects. To our west being the West University neighborhood, and obviously the university's properties to the south. And as we were looking at this site, where we started at is looking at, we looked at the historic resources on site and walk a little bit through the plan, but I think everybody's very familiar with the main gate overlay. It really tries to balance the interest of the historic preservation with new development. It's trying to achieve that. So we looked at that, and we started off with figuring out, where the condition of the homes and what the options might be. And in doing that, with the initial, again, because we only had the initial 6, we figured, working with the team, that we had 5 salvageable contributing homes that were in good, stable shape. We did have 1052, which is an adobe house that unfortunately, once our structural engineer got in there, determined was in a failing condition between termites and damage. So that one unfortunately wasn't movable. So the first step we did was look at, was there a way we could incorporate them into the site? Obviously, it's a tight location from Euclid to the alley is, not particularly deep. Once you put the homes in front and to the north, it became challenging. So we ran some iterations there, weren't successful in finding a footprint that really worked. And so then we worked with the West University neighborhood to find a location to relocate the homes. And one of the things that we heard loud and clear was making sure that these contributed homes stayed in the district and in the neighborhood. And so it took a little bit of time, but we did find a good partner with Joel Ireland, who owns a property on Second, as well as another one at the corner of Second and First. And we were actually able to relocate the homes to those two parcels and keep them in the neighborhood. Part of the process there involves obviously the relocation, but then the exterior rehabilitation of those homes, at which point then Mr. Ireland will be finishing up his TIs on the interiors and returning them to residential use. What was as part of this process, and again, starting in 2018, was a lot of discussion kind of on two sides. One was, what to do with these assets, and then obviously what to do with the new site. I'll talk about that in here a second. But the working with the West University neighborhood and the council office, we were able to go through, confirmation that the homes are being contributing through the SHPO office and all of those steps, as well as establishing both a removal strategy and a relocation strategy that went through the historic review process as well. So all of those things have been done. There's some pictures here basically of the houses before they moved, during the move, and then set on site as they're still doing the exterior work, but they've all been successfully relocated, and knock on wood, uneventfully. So the homes went smoothly and nicely. So with the homes now relocated, to kind of go back as we were looking at strategies, one of the other things that we looked at was the West University neighborhood plan, which obviously informs the main gate overlay. One of the things that we were clear there was, a concept of a step down and a transition to the neighborhood. And in this area, looking at, they were using stories, but essentially six-story masses, four-story masses. So these kind of concepts of steps pulling down from the taller buildings to the east. And so we took that to heart and said, well, we're going to design within what the plan was looking for. So then we turned to the overlay, and what we found was a little bit of a disconnect, and I think that was that friction between reusing the site, but also how best to encourage adaptive reuse of the historic resources. And obviously, at the time this plan was adopted, these were all under individual ownership. So with that in mind, at the time, the height provisions that were in the overlay were relatively restrictive, and were basically this quadrant here that had a 40-foot limitation, a little bit of 56 on the far corner. The white was actually tied into the idea of the maximum height of the existing structure, so essentially a 1 or 2 story limitation there. So while that accomplished that tier stepping that was envisioned, it really didn't fit the massing that was contemplated by the neighborhood plan, but also just kind of the market realities of redeveloping a site of this kind of complexity and cost. So we also noticed in looking at the main gate at the time was this concept of bulk reduction. And so we also took that to heart as well. And so, again, working with the community, both on the relocation plan and the rehab plans and going through those processes, we also worked on the amendment required to the main gate overlay. And essentially what we proposed and what the mayor and council adopted earlier this year is essentially a plan specific. We called it a master redevelopment plan, but essentially a plan that said, hey, if you have a full assemblage of this quadrant, then that unlocks the ability to use this provision, which is what you'll see here today. Basically, it calls for a few things. The first kind of element is it requires that the 5 homes be relocated, and that 2 additional ones be either relocated or received on site. Those are the 2 that we picked up that are integrated into the project, which we'll show you in a minute. And then obviously restoring those once relocated. And then the bigger thing being 5D and 5E, which really focused on the idea of a height of up to 74 feet, which gets you the height that's needed, but then providing the step downs to 48 to 24, and to tie those into the prior provisions with the step back and transition. So we took those a little bit further, and they're spelled out here, all 5, but basically adding these additional step backs at different parts of the building to match what we were showing the community in our elevations and concept plan. And then the other elements that we required was a requirement about this idea of a two-story townhouse feature along the front edge, which we'll show you. One of the things that we heard from the community was this idea of, again, stepping down both the height, but also kind of the use. There was some concern, trying to buffer student use with more of a traditional rentals model. And so looking at those units at the ground floor being an opportunity for a workforce housing type of product. So we entered into a development agreement with the city that essentially has 30 units that are on those first 2 floors of that townhouse elevation. And those are, intended to be workforce units that are at an achievable market price to offer some housing opportunity in the community that doesn't exist, and to add some housing stock that's a little different than just a pure student model. And then we also had some requirements regarding the active outdoor amenities. You'll notice that the center of the building is sort of a donut. That's where the pool goes. Keep that wrapped by units for noise and aesthetic concerns. And then the last element was a couple of things related to improving some public infrastructure. Euclid needs to be widened. That turn lane, if everyone's driven it, is a little on the stubby side. So this will be a more proper turn lane of significant length along our frontage. That right-of-way is being dedicated under process now. Evaluating first in Euclid for a possible pedestrian improvement there. So we're working with the transportation department on that. And then making sure our stormwater doesn't have any nuisance issues. Some of the other projects we heard from the neighbors had some issues. And so to make sure we work with the city on ensuring that isn't a problem. So with all of those pieces, then we'll get a little bit into the design. So I'm going to hand it over to Matt to talk a little bit about the architectural inspiration and concept. And so we'll go from there. And then once we've kind of walked through his stuff, we'll be happy to take some questions. So Matt, I'm going to let you drive now. So Great. I think you can share screen.
Yep. Let's see what we got. We can all see Speedway, Tucson, Arizona, I hope.
Yes,
Joan. Yes. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. You never know. I have many things. So like Noel was saying, we've been working on this project for a while. So I thought I would sort of back up a little bit, just real quick, and set the scene from our point of view, for design, how we sort of went about this. When we started this project, it was back in 2018. We had multiple different ways of approaching this. And then we got to last year, and you can see that rendering from March of 2023. And we were still sort of, and I'll be honest, we were designing rapidly and as quick as we could. And we were kind of just throwing things at the wall. And we finally got back, and we've heard a lot of conversation with commissions and the neighborhood. And we stepped back and said, we're not going about this correctly. To be perfectly honest, we need to have a better understanding about the importance of Euclid and Speedway, the intersection itself, the location of the site within a historic neighborhood. We need to be more purposeful about how we're going about the design and making sure that we are of the place. So with that in mind, we then went through a whole series of investigations and deep dive into an understanding and data mining, basically, of what is Tucson, what is important about in Tucson, whether it's its geography or its historical background, the geology of the surrounding Sonoran Desert, the phenomenal outdoor activities that then are afforded by this beautiful landscape. And then also the University of Arizona and its place within the city of Tucson. We're obviously closely associated with that since we are targeting students to live here predominantly outside of the workforce housing. And so we want to make sure that we have an understanding of that. With that, then, sort of a big, broad overview that we then investigated, we started diving into specifically the areas around us and things that we felt were of influence to the design of the overall project. That included the historic neighborhood. And I threw in a couple arrows here because some of the things that we kept gravitating to were the tufa stone bases that you see traditionally around both historic and non-historic houses within the neighborhood. And as much as there's the residential flavor of the neighborhood, there are other, retail and other type of buildings within the neighborhood that we wanted to be cognizant in and understanding, and how does that inform the design process as we go through this. One of the things that we really appreciated as a team is the historic simplicity of Adobe structures. Just the ability to have larger facades with just a beautiful skin or finish to it, and being appreciative of that as a massing element. I threw in two more arrows here to sort of point out the tufa base there on the image to the left, and also this very sliver thin top that we've seen in a lot of these historic structures, something that sort of grabs our eye and you'll see come up later. We also looked at precedents and historic structures that were of a larger scale, that were residential in nature, in this case, hotels. Unfortunately, neither the Santa Rita, which was demolished back, I believe, in 2007, and the Pioneer Hotel, which tragic national news and the fire that took its existence away from us. But we really clung on to the Santa Rita in a lot of different ways, because there's this beautiful massing breakdown that happens within that building, stepping from 6 to 4 to 2, and we really took cues from that and inspiration from that. The other thing that I would point to on these is sort of the field, again, sort of that larger mass, the ability to, don't be afraid of, if a wall wants to be a little bit longer or larger and windows within it, allow it to be that field. And the focus still here on a lot of these projects as you're walking around is that ground floor experience that's really active and dynamic, and we wanted to take that to heart. I've always been enamored by the inclusion of backyards within the Tucson area, and the inspiration from that is directly related to the project. Looking at campus as well, one of the things that we really appreciate about it is, as much as there are extremely modern structures on campus, there are also historic, but they all work together really well. There's a beautiful fabric of the campus, and we wanted to be respectful of that and make homage to that, as well as to the Sonoran Desert, which is just absolutely magnificent. We wanted to sort of weave that into the project in some way as well. And then we did, the classic deep dive into the site and where is it specifically, right across from the historic West University neighborhood, close proximity to U of A, and then very close proximity to some very large structures to the east of us, going all the way up to 15 stories. So that sort of started to set the scene for us. And what that all did was it led to this diagram, or this partie, for the overall project, and how it broke down. Like Noel said, we were being directed in a lot of ways by the zoning code in terms of how the massing was going to be developed, but we wanted to make sure that that massing then had a story and a relationship to everything that I've been, this investigation that we did. So the backside of the project, facing up against the taller buildings next door, that is our grounding element. It's grounded in, and it speaks to the University of Arizona through its color, and the Sonoran Desert as well. And then in the front foreground of that, then, and the windows in that element at the back, that we'll call it the desert element, those are a little bit irregular and playful. We developed those as an idea of carving into rock, and we'll get to that in a little bit. The windows on the historic white stucco element, which is facing the neighborhood, are very regular and ordered, similar to a lot of the other historic structures that we just saw, including the Santa Rita Hotel. And then at the base of the project, this is our tufa stone, the two-story expression of workforce housing and the lobby that along Euclid and the lobby along Speedway. This becomes that grounding element that is directly accessible by the pedestrian experience, and we wanted to have that right there. So we'll start walking through now. So this is our overall site plan on the top left-hand corner. So north is to our right with Speedway and Euclid. At the top of the page is the west side. We've got the two existing historic houses on our southwest corner of the site. This main bulk of the building fronting Euclid and Speedway is where we have our main lobby entrance. One of the things that we did early on during the design process after conversations with the neighborhood, this used to be squared off here. We carved out this drop-off entry space because somebody during one of those meetings made a comment about, well, where's Uber going to go? Or where's their food delivery? Are they going to stop on Speedway and run in? And we're like, well, that's not going to work. That's really disruptive. So we created this drop-off, and that works for those type of things, Uber or food drop-off, or move in, move out day, and also trash. So we're trying to get those type of activities off of the alley so the alley can still function directly, but we can provide in and out. I wanted to run through the landscape plan overall. Now we've rotated and we've got north back up. The way that really see the landscape around the perimeter of the building in the public right of way is we've got three zones. One that's up here at the Speedway area that wraps around at the 100% corner, Speedway and Euclid. The continuation here in front of the workforce housing along Euclid, and then the landscaping down at the two historic houses. Starting at the top, you can see we've got bike parking up here right next to the main entrance. The paving pattern responds directly to that main entrance, so we can see it coming out. We've got raised planting beds here, which are skinned in a combination of split face CMU and black metal, and they have benches along the edge of them. We were trying to create up here along the Speedway area, especially in this zone here between building and the planting areas where people can stop and sit and hang out. When you get to the corner here, we have a grand stair that sort of develops and leads out to the intersection. And then as we wrap the corner here, as you come down, this is ramping down because we've got a change in grade. It sort of wraps and snakes out to bring people away from the units now that are on the ground floor. And that language continues as we go down Euclid. We've developed this raised planter out of the split face CMU that is creating a barrier between people living at grade and people walking by on the sidewalk, so that it doesn't feel like people are in your living room while you're sitting there at the end of the day, for example. And then the landscaping around the two historic houses, right? These are residential in nature. We want the landscaping to speak to that. So it's quite a bit of native landscaping. Well, that's everywhere throughout. But we wanted this to feel more residential in nature. We've got our rainwater harvesting that goes all the way around and the rock. And then at the back side of the houses, we've created areas for people who live there to spill out and have a patio to enjoy at the end of the day. Below grade parking, we've got, by the way, throughout the entire project, we've got 145 parking stalls from the main level or level 1 here and the basement. We can see those workforce housing units that are fronting Euclid. And then when we first started this project, we used to have retail here along Speedway. And again, through a conversation with the neighborhood, they asked us, please don't put retail here. because they've seen, like, for example, in the hub, empty retail spaces for years. And so we decided to fill that space with a double height lobby with activities for residents to enjoy. And there's also the offices right there. So we were trying to create this really nice active edge for people that are walking by or driving by to see people inside, really helping to activate the sidewalk as much as possible. And then our services, like I said before, are all located off of the alley to really utilize that back of house as much as possible and keep it away from the public right away. As we come up to level 2, this is where we've got our amenity deck. We'll see a section of that, but what we tried to do was really lower that down into the donut of the building. When we get up to level 3 and 4, you can see that the Euclid facade is stepped back from the face of the workforce housing. And as we get up to level 5, 6, and 7, we drop that away completely so that the expression facing towards Euclid is kind of an E structure. We don't have one big, long, tall facade facing there. And then at the rooftop, we do have a sun deck that's just for residents who really like to sit out in the sun. Let's put it that way. We learned that through conversations with students as well, that was kind of a necessity. But it's very downplayed and just basically a deck for all intents and purposes. If we look at the section here, this is through the workforce housing, so we can see that setback from the sidewalk with landscaping, 2-story expression. We step up to our 4, and then we drop away, and we can see here's the inside of the donut with the amenity deck. We've got quite a bit of landscaping and soft materials in there in an effort to deaden the sound as much as possible. We know, right, how this all works with students on a Friday night. So we're trying to downplay that as much as possible and contain the sound. And then as we get back to the back alley, we can see the relationship to the urbane that's already existing back there. This is a section through the minor courtyard. Here you can see in plan and its relationship to the existing historical house with the separation behind it. Run through the elevations real quick, and what I would point to, I guess, this is the west elevation facing Euclid. The window patterning on the white stucco as just a single window type that gets repeated in a very compositional way to sort of respect sort of that, again, trying to speak to that historical pattern that we were seeing in some of the precedents that we looked at. And there's the workforce housing there with that 2-story expression and the CMU, split face CMU base at the landscaping. As we go to the north, this is where we can start to see sort of that the windows on the desert portion of the project, the grounding portion at the back are regular, or they look irregular. You can see they actually stack, and we're using this carving that we're doing into the stucco to create an irregular pattern. Well, they stack in some places. When we get to the alley, we don't do that carving technique in the stucco, but we're just doing a color differentiation. All these windows actually stack, but that sort of gives us a nice playful, again, trying to relate back to sort of the desert experience. And then here's that south elevation with the historic houses on the left-hand side, our CMU base and the alley. Oh, this one always takes a little bit. This is our materials board, so it's a little bit hefty. But this is in the package, and we're using a stucco throughout, whether it's at the desert side or the historic. And then at the base of the project, we're using a product called Ceraclad. It is a composite product that is got integral color throughout, and I'm only going to highlight that here because it might be an unknown product. But this comes in panels that are 10 feet long and 18 inches high. But by stacking them together and grouting them, they look like a continuous surface. And we're looking at a darker color for this. This would be the color at the joining windows to that we saw, but trying to give it a little bit more texture. So the stucco up above, the stucco at the desert form is rough. The stucco at the white is smooth. And then here, when we get down to the base expression, it's a very textured experience because you're close to pedestrians. We want to give them a little bit more. and there. So here's that overall look from the southwest corner. We can see up above that idea of carving into the window. You can see how it gives that little shadow reveal, just as an idea or a way to sort of differentiate the exterior up above. Here's that stair at the corner to engage with the 100% corner and create that landing or front porch for the building. We created a glass box at this corner because we wanted to have that interaction between the lobby activity and the outdoor activity with the ability to sit outside or sit on the planter. You can see that there's some benches that are being incorporated as well for people walking by to stop and have a moment of pause. We come around here to the alley. Here's that drop-off location that we've developed. There's a second entry into the lobby there so that it's easier for move-in day for students. They don't have to go through the main entrance to grab their food that's getting delivered or whatever it is. Trying to create it as easy as possible for those back-of-house activities. As we come around to the main entrance, this is where I would love to have some opinions on what color we should actually paint this canopy at the main entrance. We've gone through green, blue, brown, red, orange, everything under the sun, and nothing is jumping out as the correct color, but we landed on red for right now as a reference to the University of Arizona. You can see the windows at the main lobby. We've gone with this sort of long, thin, slender, repeating pattern to try and get a rhythm as people are walking in front of it and get some nice shadow play there. The other thing I would point out, sorry, is the canopy at the main entrance that wraps the corner around towards Euclid. This is a perforated metal panel up there that's going to be custom cut. And it's more of a shade factor than anything else and help to indicate where entry is for those walking by or driving by. As we come down to Euclid, here's that setback at the workforce housing with the planters raised up. Here's that material, the Ceraclad material and the smooth panel that starts to create a different type of expression here at the ground floor than we see anywhere else in the project, as sort of just trying to differentiate the workforce housing as something different and grounded. A quick image of it at nighttime, keeping all our lighting down low and pointing down low, mostly for wayfinding and safety and security for people walking at night. The overall facade, if you were to stand across from Euclid now, again, trying to harken back to those projects, the Santa Rita Hotel, and not be fearful of sort of, it is a little bit of a longer facade, but there's something trying to create an elegance to it at the same time. And then using every now and then, here we see a sliver to help break down the facade. And as we come around the corner, we'll see another one in a second. Oh, the other thing I would point out here is the cap at the top of the white stucco. Again, referencing back to that historic image I showed of the very thin cap. Just trying to get a nice shadow line right there at the top of the white stucco. The red doesn't have that. This is just sort of completes itself out as if it was like a big stone. When we come to the houses, you can see the minor courtyard and the houses, and this is the third house that's next door to us. In the foreground, we can see it again. So we've got 1, 2, 3 houses right in a row. And there's that other slot we can see on the south facade of the white stucco, trying to break up the mass just a little bit to give it a little bit of a breakdown. And I think that is it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. All right. So with that, be happy to take any questions you may have. I'll turn it over there. Thank you.
I have a question, Tom. When you said rough stucco, first of all, I think you did a great job. I think it looks really well, really good. When you said rough stucco, is that just like a pebble type thing or a swirl or what? What is that, the definition?
It is, here we go. It is the sand pebble stratostone. So
Okay.
it is, yep. It's got just a rougher
All right.
texture, and then the white is a
Right.
smooth finish.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
May I make a comment? Is it okay?
Yeah, great.
I'm coming in new to this, so take that for what it is. And I'm thinking about two specific comments related to Speedway. Speedway is a large facility and it is not comfortable to sit by. It's loud. It smells during some parts of the day with the air quality. And so when you said hang out there, I think if you looked just at the neighboring buildings where they have a fair amount of pedestrian space, there aren't really many people hanging out because it's just not really pleasant to be out there. I think the plantscaping that you have could help with that, but I also don't know that with the air quality, I would encourage people to spend a ton of time out there. My office faces Speedway just down the street about a block. So that's partly out of experience that I'm saying that. And the second, I guess this is more of a question, is related to bike related planning. It looks like you have bike parking out by Speedway. And I thought I saw something that suggested there was maybe a parking space for bikes inside in the parking area. I noticed in the traffic study that it said that Speedway had bike lanes on both sides, but it actually doesn't on the west side of Euclid. And I'm just curious in terms of the data that you're sort of compiling for bike trip generation and bike parking, if in your talks with the city that you maybe looked at data for the other buildings that are housing maybe this similar student population. So two kind of Speedway related questions.
No, those are great. What I would say to the Speedway, let me just pull up that. Wanted to pull up this so we could see the bike parking. But Speedway, one of the requirements of the Main Gate Overlay District is that we create actual outdoor spaces for potential pop-up within the front side of the building. So I think that's where a lot of this sort of came from, this idea that you could have seating out here. And we created this continuous landscape barrier to try and muffle it a little bit, I guess I should say. But there is a definite recognition of what Speedway is and currently acts like. For the bike parking, we've got some out here, right there. We've got some around the corner here at the base of the ramp as well. For students that are, or residents that are biking back from Euclid, they can park there and then come around the corner. And then inside the building, we've got this. And the way that we've got it designed currently is to code. We recognize that there are spaces as well within the basement if we need to add additional in the future.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I just want to say, generally, I see a real intensity of design in regard to the context and appreciation of Arizona and Tucson, even in regard to elements facing the U of A. And I've looked at most of the projects in the main gate. And this one, I think, this one really makes a serious attempt to relate to context, texture, and respect of the community. And that's very much appreciated.
Thank you. Well, I'll be perfectly honest, I have to do that because one of our design principles, we have 7 design principles, sorry, 7 here. And if one of them is place, right, respond to place. And if I don't do that, then Dave Heater, our president, will take it out on me. Let's put it that way.
Well,
it's very important to
there was
us.
a little more intention. That you didn't have to have your arm twisted to do that by what you presented.
It's very important to us. So thank you.
I have a couple operational questions, and I'm also new to this, so apologies if this has been addressed. I'm just curious what the intent is for the two historic houses that remain. Is there a programmatic piece to that? Will they also be just used for residential students or to whomever in the community?
That's a great question, Ryan. I think
Ryan,
Matt, sorry, Jason.
No, Davis is there.
Oh,
for it,
Davis
Davis.
is here. Oh, good. I didn't know he was here. So our client is here. So we've been working on this question for a while now. So Davis?
So we plan to incorporate these houses into the community to rent. We will lease them by the bed. Still undetermined if we want to hold this for a potential staff member. But right now the program is to utilize them within the development as a rental unit. And anybody can leave, anybody can live.
Okay.
We just are going to require you to install, to rent this unit on a 12-month installment term.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Second operational question was, in terms of the workforce housing, do they have access to all the amenities throughout the building, or is that kind of a separate scenario?
Yeah, it was really intentional actually as we went through the design process with the workforce. So for example, at the ground floor, if you look at the plan, they have direct access to the main lobby. They've got direct access to all the amenities within the project so that, they don't have a separate lobby or anything like that. No, they're part of the community.
And Ryan, we found we did a project in Tempe with a similar concept where we had a mix of the affordable with student. There we had a little bit of a separation of the building mass. It was a little bit of a different, but what they found is it's that balancing act of you can kind of avoid the students when you want to, and you can engage when you want to, and that seems to be very successful. So, for example, the pool amenities, things of that nature, and then when folks want to kind of do their thing, the way that the building physically lays out, especially here with the units along Euclid, they're somewhat physically separated in a way, so it gives some more privacy for a different housing typology.
Yeah, nice. One note on going back to the bike racks on the Euclid and Speedway. I will note we do have trouble with bikes on campus, as you may know or may not know. Are those screened, or are they enclosed, or are they just open bike racks?
Those are open bike racks. They're for short-term bike parking.
Okay,
They're not
short-term.
they're not for the residents who live there. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, they could use them, but we know what happens to them, right? So,
Secure bike parking interior for the residents.
yeah. But if you don't provide enough outside of the building, then they'll just lock them to trees and lampposts and all kinds of things. So we wanted to avoid that as much as possible, providing enough out there.
Very good. Overall, I think it looks great. I appreciate the opportunity to review it, and I vote for a red canopy.
Sounds good.
Good.
I'm writing it down.
How many units are there and how many beds? I meant to ask that earlier.
It's 165 units and 165 units, 530 beds, I believe.
Okay.
532. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the members or prospective members? Wow, you stumped us. I guess it's rare that we have that few comments coming back, but I guess that just shows that you've done a very good job with the design.
Thank you.
Appreciate the kind words.
Mr. Chair, members of the DRC, it was part of the agenda, and they're posted on the MGD DRC's webpage. But Rick Gonzalez, the design professional, reviewed this project twice. And after the first review, the applicant went ahead and did some modifications and then resubmitted. And then with the second review, the design professional is recommending approval. Also, because the design professional was out of the country and the city of Tucson we lost our historic preservation officer. We're in the process of trying to recruit a new historic preservation officer. So we went ahead and sent for historic preservation review the design package to a second design professional who was available. That was Corky Poster, who also recommended approval in terms of historic preservation. So you have that material also available. And this project was formally reviewed last night by the West University Historic Zone Advisory Board, and they recommended approval as presented by the applicant. And right now is scheduled to go to the Tucson-Pima County Historical Commission's Plans Review Subcommittee, the PRS. It's actually gonna be going on November 14th, unless we're trying to explore if the PRS is able to hold a special meeting before then, because they're just packed with in their agenda. There's just so many projects going on. So this project still needs to be reviewed by the PRS as well, and formally by you, by the MGD DRC, since today is a courtesy review meeting. I believe that's all I have to say. And no, I'm gonna ask you to go through the design package, because in the drawings I had seen a total of the 183 dwelling units with 525 beds. So you mentioned a couple of different numbers today. So if you could please,
Sure.
I know it's a lot of numbers to count, but if you could please verify those numbers and make any necessary revisions to the design package as soon as possible before the PRS review and before the MGD DRC review.
No problem at all. We'll have Matt get right on that.
And also clarification on the potential use of the historic homes that remain on site.
Certainly, we can add that too.
Okay, thanks.
So I think in this case, correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, but there's no need for a vote on this, since it's just an informational meeting and purview. Are there any other comments or questions from anyone?
I have a couple, I mean, they're sort of, one is the concern with what happens to wastewater from pools, fire, suppression, flushing, all that. The neighborhoods had continual issues with wastewater running down First Street, and it's yet to be rectified. And adding one more high density structure in this general area will only add to it. And so that's one thing that I think we'd like addressed from a neighborhood perspective. And then the other question I have about the design is the clustering of the workforce housing along Euclid. It seems to me like that's the housing that's most likely to have small children visiting it, and putting it along the second busiest street that is near the project seems to be a risk for those tenants. And also the clustering of them sort of sets them apart as other, as opposed to incorporating them into the building as a whole. And you know, as opposed to having the units spread out through the building to make them part of the community, as opposed to the design now, which sort of ghettoizes it.
Trey or Jason, do you want to speak to the first part of that with the water, concern about water?
Trey, can you?
Yep. Sorry.
Right, regarding wastewater, now we have trash enclosure. I mean, we have an interior trash room, and there's concern in the past in this area that some of the trash room, exterior trash enclosure, so the trash got washed down the street, during a large storm. For this project, it's all interior, so there's a trash room with trash compactor and container that only roll out onto the alley on the day of pickup service. And after the service is picked up, those containers are gonna get rolled back into the trash room, which is inside the building by the garage. So that would reduce or minimize or eliminate, any trash got washed down the alley.
And then on the and this says on the housing configuration, you can kind of see it here on Euclid. Part of that was design direction that we got in dialogue with the council office at the time. There was a desire to see a use transition between the pure student-focused development to the east and the more residential neighborhood to the west. And to accomplish that, the direction we were given was to try to use and design those spaces as sort of a transitional use between the two. I think, and part of some of the logic and not sprinkle them, so to speak, amongst is sometimes students can be a little challenging as a next door neighbor, so to speak, keeping odd hours and whatnot. So while we do have security plans and things of that nature and expect well-behaved residents, often, and again, it was just from our experience in Tempe as well, is it's been that there's, typically your workforce folks want to be next to other workforce folks because they're typically not student centric and have a little bit more of a routine. So again, that gives them the ability to engage as they wish. They get the benefits of all the amenities, obviously, but still have that ability to not be overly engaged with the students, I think would be the polite way to put it.
I don't think my first question was actually addressed. The concern is not about floating trash. The concern is about the constant flow of backwash from cleaning the pool, of water from flushing out the, bi-monthly flushing of the fire suppression system, and, the washing down of decks, sun deck, your pet relief area, all of that water that then flows because it's not required to be put into the sanitary sewer, and it's treated as stormwater essentially.
Yeah, so Tree, I think on the sort of the first flush, so to speak, which would come off of those areas, that's all being managed through our stormwater retention system. You're on mute, bud.
Sorry. But that is a different thing. So all the rainwater on site pretty much route through the water harvesting or retention basin on site, and it's kind of metered off and released slowly onto Euclid. But I think Noah's concerned about pool backwash, and Jason, I believe that might be tied to the plumbing system on site. Is that right? I don't think those backwash going to be discharged onto any of the public street or the alley.
No, it would not. It's tied to the plumbing system.
Does that answer your question, Noah?
It does, but none of the other large projects over there have it tied to the sanitary sewer. So I'll withhold judgment.
I think an exhibit we can bring next time, Mr. Sensenbar, for you is we can do kind of a rough idea of kind of those nuisance areas and how those are managed, because we did hear that loud and clear in our dialogue with your neighborhood, and I've actually got some pictures of it. I was a little surprised hear that modern structures were allowed to just kind of drain off like that. That's very atypical. So we'll bring that information to you.
Welcome to the Wild West.
Thank you, Noah. Were there any other questions or comments? Very well. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. Maria, were there any other future agenda items that we need to address?
No, Mr. Chair, just, that this project will need to be formally reviewed by the MGD DRC. And since I have you all here, most of you except for one of you, Mr. Williams, and I'm trying to also to understand the timeline of this project now. I'm trying to see if we can establish at least tentatively a date for the MGD DRC to review formally this project. So, Noel, I don't know if, in a couple of weeks works for your timeline, or in 3 weeks, so we can look at those weeks and
yeah, as soon as we can get everyone together again, would be appreciated. The sooner the better. We're trying to get everything on the development plan wrapped up here in the next couple of weeks, so we can move to the next phase and start some construction. So whenever everyone's available, as soon as we can get together, it'd be great. We'll get together those extra exhibits that were requested, and we'll be ready to present.
Okay, very good. So, Mr. Chair, members of the DRC, is it okay if we meet tentatively either Monday the 28th or Tuesday the 29th? It could be at the same time if that's what works best for all of you. So we're looking at Monday the 28th of October or the 29th around 2 p.m. or so. Is that a time that tentatively works right now for everybody?
And I promise to be more concise.
No. That works for me. Maria, I'll be on a plane that morning, so assuming it's okay, it's on time, excuse me, 2 o'clock on the 29th will work also. But right now,
Okay.
both those dates work, as long as the plane is on time on the 29th.
Okay, or we can do it for the 30th if that's more
The
convenient.
29th will be, I think it's good. It
Yes, to be
should
more
arrive in the morning.
safe. Especially, I don't know the timing with the city manager, but we have, Alexis Ryland representing the Marshall Foundation right now, but I'm hoping by that date we can get the appointment by the city manager for Miss Huber. So can we set it for now for Wednesday, October 30th at 2 p.m.?
I'll be unavailable, but I'm sure Matt will be available, so.
I'll be on a plane going back. So yeah,
Short
it's better
trip.
the 28th or 29th for me, unless someone has a conflict on the 29th.
Oh, I
of those
see.
days.
Okay, so let's do it at 29 at 2 p.m. So that would be Tuesday. Is there anybody that sees a problem in their schedule with that?
I may have to leave a little early, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna be totally unavailable at that point.
And who was that?
Noah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sensi. So I'm gonna send you the appointment for Tuesday, October 29 at 2 p.m. Is that does that work with you, Mr. Gonzalez? Because you must be at the meeting.
Yeah.
For code.
In that case, I will attend.
Okay, very good. Because without a design professional, we have no quorum.
I will be there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, I
And-
will send out the appointment.
And I'm officially the chair, right?
Yes. And okay, thank you so much. And let me reshare my screen here just to make sure. For the benefit of the new MGD DRC members, I went ahead and I was more descriptive, which is something that I think it's a good idea to do for future meetings. But I included the MGD DRC's purview.
Good.
Right, per the MGD document, and all the standards and everything are in the document that you already have a link to. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Was there anything else anyone had? If not, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much all for being here and your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I took
Thank
note
you
of the adjournment
Thank you.
time of 3:14 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Adjourned.